Hello and welcome. Today we're going to dive into the psychology of a role that, a lot of us end up playing without even realizing it. The silent confident.
Just let that sink in for a second. You're the person everyone comes to with their worries, their fears, their biggest news. You're the vault. But when you think about it, when was the last time somebody really asked you? If that question hits a little too close to home, well, you are in the right place.
And yeah, there's a name for this. The therapist friend. It's a term that so many people instantly get. You're the one who's always there, always holding space for others. But as we're about to find out, this is so much more than just being a nice person.
That's the real twist here. This whole tendency to listen way more than you ever share, it's not just some random personality quirk. It is a deeply ingrained, totally logical, subconscious strategy your brain came up with to protect you. So how on earth does that work?
Okay, so first up, let's unpack this idea of listening as a shield, how your silence actually becomes a form of self-protection. So the roots for a lot of this stuff, they go way, way back. Think about it. If you grew up in a home where your feelings were kind of brushed aside, maybe you were told you were being too sensitive or just straight up ignored, your brain was paying close attention. It was taking notes.
And the conclusion it came to was incredibly simple and incredibly logical. Opening up equals getting hurt, or at the very least, being ignored. So to avoid that sting, you just stopped. You learned to pivot conversations away from yourself. Listening became your superpower, but it was also your shield.
And this quote it gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? The silence isn't really about being secretive. It's about avoiding that awful, hollow feeling of being dismissed. Staying quiet is just a calculated move to preserve yourself.
Psychology has a really cool name for this smart system. It's called pattern recognition. And this isn't just about avoiding things. No, it's an adaptive strategy. It's your brain actually remembering past hurts, remembering betrayals, and then becoming super selective about who gets access to your inner world. It's all about protecting your energy.
Okay, so this whole protective shield thing starts to build on itself, which brings us right to our second point, this idea of tying your own value, your own safety in relationships to how useful you are to other people.
Let's trace the logic here, because it makes a ton of sense when you see it laid out. Subconsciously, it goes something like this. Okay, step 1, I solve their problems. Step 2, that makes me essential to them. Step 3, if I'm essential, they won't abandon me. And finally, step 4, if they won't leave me, I'm safe. It's this powerful unspoken formula for security.
But there's always a flip side, right? If your entire value is wrapped up in being the helper, the problem solver, well, then what happens when you have problems? It feels incredibly risky. You start to get this nagging fear that if you share what you're going through, you'll suddenly become a burden. You'll be too much.
And this leads to some really serious consequences. You become a master of the phrase, I'm fine, even when you're not. And that makes you incredibly easy to have around, right? Low maintenance. But the real cost, the cost is that your own needs, your own silent screams for help, can go completely unheard by the very people you spend all your time supporting.
All right, this brings us to our third and final piece of the puzzle. It's all about empathy, and specifically, what happens when it goes into overdrive. So there's this fascinating concept called emotional contagion, and for the therapist friend, this is huge. It means you don't just listen to someone's stress or sadness and sympathize with it, you actually absorb it. It's like their anxiety literally becomes your anxiety. Their pain becomes your pain. So what happens when you're already processing this constant flood of emotions from everyone else in your life? Well, your mental bandwidth just gets totally maxed out. There's literally no room left for your own stuff. You end up staying quiet about your own issues because the thought of adding even one more drop to that overflowing bucket feels impossible. So, now that we've looked at all these layers, the shield, the usefulness, the empathy, how are we supposed to look at all this? Well, this is the part where we get to reframe the entire conversation. This right here, this is the absolute key. Being the therapist friend is not a character flaw. It's not a sign that you're weak. It is a brilliant, intelligent, adaptive survival strategy that your brain literally engineered to navigate your world and to keep you safe. When you really boil it down, this whole pattern is a perfectly logical response to a world that maybe hasn't always felt that safe. It's a way to build connections, but on your own terms, and those terms prioritize your emotional safety above absolutely everything else. So I'll leave you with this question. When you stop seeing this pattern as a flaw and you start seeing it as this incredibly sophisticated piece of your own mental architecture, what shifts for you? Once you finally understand the why behind what you do, it kind of changes everything, doesn't it?